Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Sequel Pitch, the movie podcast where three friends pitch their movie sequel ideas to the judge. I'm your host, but not your judge this week, Ross Armston. Matt has other theatrical commitments and won't be joining us today. Sad. But joining me today is a man as chilled as monkey brains. It's Andy Henry.
Hi.
Say hello.
Hi.
How do you respond
What do
to
I
that?
say to that? Hi.
And with him is a man that has so much knowledge, he belongs in a museum. It's Drew Toynbee.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet. I appreciate that a lot.
And introducing this week, a very, very special guest, the true golden idol of this episode. It's Jordan King. Hooray! Now, Jordan is a film journalist and a friend of the show, but rather than me introduce him, as guest host and judge this week, Jordan is going to tell us more about yourself, like a job interview. Jordan, there you go.
Yay.
Give the listeners a little bit about yourself.
I am a film journalist. I've written for Empire magazine recently, which was pretty cool. I write here, there, and everywhere. I'm 23. I feel like I'm doing like a dating profile. I feel like I'm 23 years old. I like long walks and short walks, nights in and nights out. I'm a film critic, film lover, and yeah, that's me basically.
Here's a question for you. What is your favourite film of
that's
all time?
Mean question.
Yeah, that's throw me in at the deep end. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I'll narrow it down. What's your favourite childhood film?
Easy. The Iron Giant every single time.
Oh, it's
Nice.
a good choice.
Yeah.
That is
It's
a good choice.
I think that's still probably my favourite film when push comes to shove.
Nice.
I do love it.
That's Vin Diesel, isn't it?
It is Vin Diesel.
Yeah. He's voiced two characters now, like animation-wise, hasn't he? Or probably more than that. I don't know. I don't know
He
if he's...
must have done more than just he's got such a
range
distinctive
as a voice
voice.
actor.
Such a range of one-word characters.
Family. That's all he says. I mean, that's the most important thing, is what your favourite film is. And we'll get to know you a little bit more in the episode, which is cool. So how is this week going to work? All right. So firstly, Jordan will bring us his official 60-second-ish synopsis. We'll chat about the movie then, and then we'll talk about its good points, bad points, and all the in-between, and we'll review it. And then the guest judge officially takes over. The reins are yours, Jordan. Drew, Andy, and myself are going to all pitch our best sequels to you, who will pick them apart and ultimately decide this week's winning pitch. So technically, I could win 2 weeks in a row, which would be really good.
Would be a first.
Yeah, 2-week winner. The winner will then host the week after, just like normal. So, without further ado, Jordan, what movie are we going to be pitching sequels to this week?
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Very nice. So, Jordan, are you ready to do your 60 seconds-ish kind of synopsis of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Ready is a word for what I am. We shall see.
All right, here we go. Your time starts now.
Dr. Henry Walton Jones Jr., better known as Indiana Jones, or Indy to his pals, is a professor at Marshall College in Connecticut, USA. When he's not teaching his students archaeology, he can often be found archaeologing around the world, trading tweed and specs for fedora and whip. Having beaten the Nazis in 1936 to the Ark of the Covenant, stopping the Fuhrer's plot, one of his plots for world domination, retrieved a sacred stone stolen from a small village by a religious cult hell-bent on establishing their god as the one true power a year earlier, and then stopping the Nazis yet again in 1938 by snagging the Holy Grail from their grasp with the help of his assuredly not Scottish father, Indy returns to action in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I probably should have done that. It's 1957. We're in Nevada. We're outside Area 51. Indy and George Mac McHale, Ray Winston, have been kidnapped by Soviet agents working under the villainous Irina Spalko. Under duress, Jones is forced to lead Spalko and co. through Area 51's hangar to locate a mummified corpse from the Roswell UFO incident. Corpse located, Mac reveals he's a rat, a double agent for the KGB. Fighting his way out of the hangar, Indy ends up in a model town right before an atom bomb test, which he manages to survive by hiding in a lead-lined fridge. Genius. Having been interrogated by the FBI, Indy returns to Marshall College, where he is swiftly put on an indefinite leave of absence for the KGB bust-up. Stopped in his tracks by greaser Mutt Williams, Shia LaBeouf, Indy learns that his old colleague Harold Oxley has disappeared after discovering a crystal skull in Peru. Mutt and Indy shoot the shit in a diner, talking all things Akator, crystal skulls, and the Uga tribe. After getting Indy to decode a letter from Oxley, it becomes apparent that the Soviet agents have been listening in, and Mutt and Indy find themselves in a chase away from the Sovs. We next see Mutt and Indy in Peru, following a trail of clues that lead them to the Oxley's crystal skull. The duo get captured and find themselves in camp, where Oxley and Indy's old flame Marion are being held. Here, Indy learns two things. The crystal skull is believed to come from an extraterrestrial life form holding immense cosmic power, and that Mutt is his son. Marion is Mutt's mother. The four prisoners escape the Soviet camp and, after a lengthy vehicle chase involving sword fights and Siafu ants, Indy and co arrive at the Temple of Akator, a Maya-style pyramid in the Amazon rainforest. Also arriving at Akator is Mac, who claims his double cross in Nevada was actually a treble cross, and that he's actually a CIA double agent. He is, of course, a great whopping liar, and is leading Salco to the temple. Indy's group make their way through the temple, ending up in a tomb where 13 crystal skeletons, one missing a skull, sit on thrones. When the Soviets and Spalko show up and expose Mac's continued duplicity, power-hungry Spalko places the 13th crystal skull on the remaining headless skeleton. The skeleton talks to the group via Oxley and reveals he has a great gift for the group. Spalko wants the gift, and following a portal opening and a very literal information overload, Spalko promptly learns that not all gifts are good things, bursting into flames and disintegrating as the knowledge of the universe delivers her comeuppance. While the Soviets and Mac get sucked into the ether by the portal, Indy, Mutt, Oxley and Marion escape to live another day. By credits roll, Indy has been made an associate dean at Marshall College, told Mutt to chef off if he thinks he's nabbing the fedora, and married Marion, leaving all our main characters and the audience in the theatres really, really happy with no complaints whatsoever after a job well done. That was about a minute, right?
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Oh, I love it.
So, it's now time to talk about the movie. Jordan, do you want to lead this discussion?
Well, living by the sword and very much dying by the sword, I really, really like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I am sure I have been reliably informed is the universal opinion on Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think it's a great throwback to like 50s B-movies and sci-fi. It's packed with some great set pieces. I actually think that Shia LaBeouf as Mutt is pretty good, even though maybe we're not supposed to talk about Shia LaBeouf anymore. Who knows? Dodgy, iffy territory.
I mean, he's in the movie. We can't pretend like he's not in the film.
We can't. I mean, I think a lot of
Some people
have
want
tried to imagine he wasn't in it, but he definitely was. But I mean, I think a big part of my love for the film is that obviously I wasn't alive for the first three Indiana Joneses at the cinema. I was born in 1998, so I was kind of prime. I think I kind of came to it at the right time. I was like 10 years old, loved watching the DVDs at my uncle's house, and so it was like go to the cinema, the big John Williams score strikes up, and it was just a cool adventure, and there was some really like grim, gruesome bits with like the killer ants and stuff. And I was just there, like, I came out of it and I remember thinking, that was just awesome. And it was like, oh, this is what Indiana Jones was when my parents were kids. So, yeah, I mean, I like it, which is the popular opinion that no one's going to disagree with.
I am going to disagree with you.
I am stunned.
I'm sorry.
Stunned and amazed.
Even now, like, all right, it exists. It exists. It's out there. It is a film. I just think that I agree with you in terms of it's a good homage to B movies. I see what they were doing, and I see that is the natural progression to do something about aliens, because that was at the height of when Indy was at that age and that year. But I just feel that it just lacked the love and the original three had. Like, there was so much green screen and so much like CGI that it just took me out. And the thing that I love about the movies, the original three, like, is that they take you on these exotic locations. And yeah, they did have some live set. I'm not saying that they, like, in 4, they just constantly use CGI. But you went to different places. You went to Egypt. You went to all these different places, and it was fantastical. Whereas I feel the 4th one, it just feels very stagnant in terms of, it just feels like it's in a studio. And that's why, for me, I couldn't get on board with it as much. I really enjoyed the beginning. The beginning bit was cool, where he's like whipping stuff and swinging through,
I
love
whipping stuff.
I love the swing for the truck, and he
misses.
misses it and comes up short. It's like, damn, I thought it was closer.
I think the that thing with the swing with the rope, I think one of my few big criticisms of the film in general is that sometimes I've found that it feels a little bit like they pushed Indiana Jones too close to being a superhero. I think that one of the things that made him so cool in the first place was that he seemed like it's a guy being a dude doing cool things, and it's like, is he going to get out of this next scrape or not? Whereas, like,
he should have
it
died
does
in like
seem
every
really
action
real.
scene.
And fundamentally, it's him making things up. It's him going, oh, I'm making this up as I go. Like, it's that thing. Yeah. Whereas, yeah, you're right. It feels like he's kind of like a superhero.
The John McClane, I guess, the same problem he had.
Yeah.
Which was my biggest problem with the film. There was two biggest problems for me. One was the CGI, because the CGI, I don't know how or why, but it was just terrible. All of it. Really took me out. And then, same as when I watched Die Hard 4, just like, just old Indy just kind of depresses me a little bit. There's not much the film can do about that, because it's like 2 hours. But every time I saw him, I was just a bit like, oh.
I agree with Andy in that sense. I feel that they didn't need to constantly reference his age. And in that point, I'm not sure how old Harrison Ford was. I think he was like 65, maybe?
Yeah, about 60
something or other. And like, he's not immobile. He can't do like, he can still do stuff. Like, even in the new one that they're gonna make, he can still do stuff. He's 71. He's not like bedbound, and he's not. And I feel that they lean too much into that, like making him make quips about him being old and stuff. And I was like, there is an element of that, but I just don't know. I just didn't think it needed that.
I think the interesting thing for me on that is that, like, Steven Spielberg said I think it was on the DVD extras or something, but Steven Spielberg said that when Harrison Ford came back for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he said that he was in the same shape, if not better, than he was in 1989. Like, they didn't even have to resize him for his outfits. He wore his old outfit because it fit him the same. It was the same build.
Yeah,
and I think you've got a fair point there that the guy wasn't like, he's not a Jerry action hero. Like, he's still got it. He to quote Han Solo, he's got it where it counts.
Exactly.
And it's weird that they did lean a little bit on the, oh, he's getting old now.
It has the issue being set a good chunk of time after the previous film. It has the issue of, he keeps on bringing up these other adventures that he did in the interim that sound really awesome.
You want to watch those ones?
Yeah, I want to see that. I desperately want to see it. And when one is perhaps struggling a little with Tarzan, Shia LaBeouf,
oh God,
and your brain's like, yes, Harrison Ford and Ray Winston doing World War II secret missions sounds fucking rad.
Yeah.
But
Ray Winston,
c'est la vie.
I was just gonna sort of ask what you guys' opinions are of the big set piece events in this one, because I've had so many different conversations about them, and things like Nuke the Fridge or the chase away from the diner. Like, for me, they're some of my favorite Indiana Jones. I think Nuke the Fridge is I just think it's genius. I think it's stupid. It's one of the most stupid things that could possibly happen, but it's also in its own perversely beautiful way.
Yeah. I was talking to my friend about this, and I agree with you. I like that scene purely because it's him making it up and just going, and then managing to survive, like, and being like, holy shit, that worked. Like, it is bonkers. Don't get me wrong. He gets thrown like 3 miles in a fridge.
It's the impact that if he'd got in the fridge and it goes white and you see the shot and you see the miniature of the village being exploded and all of that, and then you see the mushroom cloud and he kind of pushes it open from under some debris and looks up at the mushroom cloud, I wouldn't have any issue with it at all. It's just the fact that fridge impacts the ground at like 90 miles an hour, rolls 3 times, and then he just immediately kind of gets out and...
Which, to be fair, if it was like Indy in the first film, you maybe be able to go like, oh, okay, but he's so old. Everything would crackle in that fridge. Just,
That's what they were lacking. They just needed to add a little bit in the sound mix of just so you hear some bones crunching. Or when he gets out of the fridge, he just cracks his back. And they're like, oh, that one.
Just take a pillow in there from the sofa, and he was like, oh, thank God I had this.
Well, that's the other thing. Or pad it with stuff. If he had grabbed a load of cushions and shoved it in there as he got in, then again I would
have believed that more at least.
What do you guys think about? I'm a huge movie soundtrack, and Jordan, you were talking about soundtracks off air, and I am a massive fan of like the 3 soundtracks. Sorry, but I wasn't a massive fan of the 4th. There wasn't, for me, as many memorable like themes in this movie. I don't know. What did you think?
For me, it kind of had a similar effect to when I watched The Rise of Skywalker, actually, I think. And again, it's John Williams. Where The Rise of Skywalker, the film is a whole other topic for a whole other day. But the score for that film, I really loved it as a celebration of Star Wars. It had so many motifs that recalled, iconic moments in the franchise. You got moments with Leia's theme. You got all of these different characters as iconic themes. And I think with Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the score, I think, is a strong one on the whole. I think it has a lot of the sort of iconic themes, and it has a lot of those motifs that we know and love. But I think that it suffers for not daring to do something different, because we're in a different time era. The first 3 Indiana Jones films are set within essentially a 3-4 year period, so the score kind of stays quite compact and close-knit because Indy and all of those characters are existing in a specific time frame. I think that with the production design for this film, the 50s setting is so cool, and like the diner scene is amazing. But I don't feel like John Williams did that much to invest in that 50s sort of doo-wop and rock and roll culture, and I think that could have been something really cool to diversify the franchise a little bit, even in amidst all of the callbacks.
I like Mutt's kind of... I don't know if John Williams made it quite sort of piratey, sort of swashbuckling just because he has the one sword fight scene, but I kind of like Mutt's like theme and motif that runs through some of it. But yeah, it doesn't go particularly far. It certainly doesn't take any further steps than any of the previous soundtracks, certainly.
I also hate the fact that Mutt knows a lot about archaeology.
No, we discussed this. He was raised by another archaeologist.
I get that, but he's 19 years old. People spend their lives learning archaeology, and
what
you
was
can't.
Indy like
it's
at
not
19 though.
You can't just like pick it up like, oh yeah, I've read. It's not like Sims. You don't just like put it on a bar and you're just like, oh, I can do archaeology now. I've achieved the archaeology achievement, and I don't like that. And I also don't like the fact that like Indy is a bit different in this archaeology stuff. Like he looks at a painting on a wall and goes, that's over 2,000 years old, just by looking at it. Or saying that the aliens are archaeologists. How does he know that? He's not experienced. Like the thing, like archaeology is a whole. Is like going, I can do everything in archaeology now. I know everything about everything. And archaeology is a massive subject. And back me up, archaeologists out there who are listening. Don't know if you're going to be, but yeah. That's another thing that I really hate. And if you have it in your pictures, I'm going to rip the beep out of you.
Of all the hills to die on for reasons to hate Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I've never heard someone with such visceral passion just go to town on the inaccuracy of Mutt being really good at archaeology.
And also the humour as well. The humour where he gets hit in the balls 3 times. They fall down a waterfall 3 times. And also, I'm going to just rant now. So, yeah, Karen Gillan's performance, she just doesn't... I
think she comes off as very happy to be there. I think
yes,
it's infectious.
Yes, which is weird. It's weird that she's just happy.
Was more pleased to be there than the character.
She's like, I'm in a movie.
She's got
oh, Indy, I remember you. I watched the other films.
I haven't been in a movie for 20 years, but yeah, I'm happy to be. Yeah, I get that, but it didn't work for me for the character.
I genuinely thought you said Karen Gillan, and I was there going.
I think he did say Karen.
Gillan. I think I did, but what's her name?
Karen.
I know.
Allen.
That's it, Karen Gillan.
I was just there going, I've seen this film a lot of times. Have I missed something vital?
When did Karen Gillan come into this? She hasn't been in a
film for 20 years and she's stolen the elixir of life.
Sorry. Karen Allen. Karen Allen.
Shout out to any Karen Allen fans out there that are now...
They turn off.
They furiously typing on Twitter.
Unsubscribe. Anyway, that's my rant over. You guys can talk about the rest of the film and how much you love it. Bye. See you later.
I mean, so I'll pick up as far as Jordan. You mentioned the other big set pieces. I think the diner into the motorbike chase is fab. I really really like that motorbike chase, and the getting into the library and Indy having the conversation with the student who has a question for Professor Jones when the bike slides up and moves the table out of the way, or no, slides the kid's chair back. And the fact that he's really into it and he's giving him proper advice, I really enjoyed that moment. The cars in the jungle is not. It doesn't look good. And
it's a good idea.
Yeah,
but how straight is that jungle? That's also got nothing in front of the cars.
Well, there's a big machine at the front that's chopping down the trees, making room for them. Although it is going at pace. If that existed in real life, then the Amazon would already be completely gone. But yeah, there are some issues with it spatially, and there are some problems like Shia LaBeouf constantly leaning on the machine gun mounted on the front of their car, being like, how are we going to deal with Cate Blanchett over there? How on earth are we going to fix this problem? Leaning on a machine gun. And having that sword fight when he's doing the splits between the two cars. And kind of like, hey, the baddie driving the other car could just swerve away, and this would all be finished.
It's like when they're about to be drove off the cliff. They're getting pushed by Cate Blanchett, and they're trying to drive along the same speed. But it's just like, well, couldn't you stop? And then you wouldn't get pushed off.
Every Peter situation they should have died in. Shot.
In all fairness, though, I feel like that comes back to that classic thing of every bad guy monologue. It's like, why don't you just shoot him?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's an adventure, isn't it? So you've got to
it is a family movie. It is perhaps for younger audiences than the other movies were, but ultimately,
I don't know. Siafu ants is nightmare fuel.
I mean, it's pretty grim. Like when they go into into the Russian soldier's mouth. That's pretty grim.
I mean, you'd had it coming, but it was still pretty grim.
Yeah.
There are a lot of choices that I find troublesome, but it is still fun. I have issues with it, and it depends on the day how much I like this film if I see it on telly and I stick it on, but I think I enjoy it more often than I don't.
Put that on the poster.
Okay. I think we should give our scores,
Yeah,
don't
we
you?
probably should.
Okay, go on, Drew. Give us a score.
All right. I think I summed it up quite well with what I said earlier. It does depend on the day for me, and I am. There are a lot of aspects of this film that I do struggle with, but there are a lot of aspects of this film that I think are genuinely fun and that I personally enjoy, and so it would feel wrong for me to give it anything lower than 3 padded with cushions, nuclear-resistant fridges out of 5.
Nice. Okay. Let's go, Jordan. What would you give it? I know you're our host, but also, what would you give it out of 5?
This conversation has reminded me of some of the things that are legitimate flaws in the film, but I think I have to stay true to my love for it when I was 10 years old, and how much I still enjoyed it revisiting it. And I would say that it is, in the context of the other 3 being 2 5-star films and 1 pretty good one, I'd say this is a 4-star film for me. It's 4 out of 5.
Okay.
Nice.
I'm putting your score in Matt's column, so hopefully Matt thinks it's a 4.
Oh yeah, Matt'll be fine with that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very nice.
I don't even think he knew there was an Indy 4 anyway. So
he hadn't seen it, had he?
No, he will never ever see it again.
We'll have to get his score next week.
Yeah.
Quick.
That'd be good.
Andy.
Well, I'm definitely going lower. I'm definitely going 2.5 swinging Shia LaBeoufs, because
which half?
Is that song that you were is that song you showed me, Drew? That 2.5 swinging Shia LaBeoufs?
Surprise, Shia! Yeah.
Actual cannibal.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Shia, surprise.
Yeah, it's the other 3 are better. I felt slightly bored at certain times. Again, old Indy did depress me. The CGI, every time there was CGI, I was just like, oh, for
down
fuck's
because
sake.
of your fear of death.
My fear of death, my fear of just looking at old.
Okay, I'm going to give it... I like this movie, but I also hate this movie. I think it's got a confusing plot. I don't like the CGI in it. I think some of the performances are not very good, and I think it relies too heavily on just nostalgia. So I'm going to give it 2 CGI gophers out of 5. Wow, so what does that give us, Drew?
That brings Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull out at 2.88 out of 5. So over
that a
half,
recommendation?
but slightly below a recommendation.
Oh dear.
So there we go.
Don't
Well,
watch it.
Jordan, it's now your turn to take the reins again.
Okie dokie. So, the pitches are the same as always. All 3 of you will have your turn pitching your movie uninterrupted.
One sec. Could we possibly have you say, it's time to get your sequels pitched?
Oh yeah, I can. Just give me. It's time to get your sequels pitched.
Ooh. Oh, it was moody. It was suspenseful. I enjoyed it.
The pitches are the same as always. All 3 of you will have your turn pitching your movie uninterrupted, and after each pitch, I might have some questions for you. Then you'll have your chance to discuss with each other and do your best to convince me why I should be picking you as the winner. So, let's get started with Andy.
So, we see a figure we recognise to be Indy running through a forest with something hidden in his bag. He's being chased by a group of people, and as Indy comes to an edge of a cliff, the group of people surround him, and a goon tries to take the bag. This is where we see Indy lift his head to reveal Chris Pratt as a young Indy. He attacks the goon and shoots, whips, and fights his way through the others until he's left with the boss, who doesn't have a gun or needs to reload. Indy tries to shoot but is out of bullets. The boss dives to the floor, grabs a gun and shoots Indy, who manages to pick up the bag and jump off the cliff, barely missing the bullets. As he's about to hit the water, old Indy, Harrison Ford, wakes up and we see it was all a dream. Indy gets up and does his old man routine as we see the title, Indiana Jones and the Fountain of Youth. Early 60s, we see Indy teaching a class. A student enters late and sits down at the back of the room. At the end of class, Mutt enters and he and Indy talk about how they haven't spoken in a couple of years. Mutt says he's part of a new group of archaeologists and explorers who do things in a new, cool way, and we don't need degrees like you old fossils. He says he's gotten back from a trip where they have found another clue to the Fountain of Youth, and Indy asks about the other clues that Mutt has, and he admits that he hasn't got much, but what he does have he can't piece together. That's why he's come to see his old man, to get his help. After some back and forth, Indy, secretly intrigued, agrees, and says something along the lines of, "Oh, come to see, just to see the look on your face when you realise you're wrong." Indy and Mutt travel to Africa, where they look over the clues and start to bond a little. When this next act, their relationship will be very much like Harrison Ford and Sean Connery, back and forth. Indy questions Mutt's motives for reaching the fountain, assuming it's money, but Mutt says he just wants his name to be remembered. They realise they're being eavesdropped on by a group of people, the bad guys, and move to a different location. On the way, Mutt meets a girl, Gloria, who tags along with him and Indy. Further along their travels, they run into the bad guys again and they get into a fight, and we have a chance to show how age is affecting Indy. Eventually, Mutt comes in and breaks up the fight. Indy leaves to clean himself up, and when he comes back, he sees Mutt talking to the head bad guy. When Indy questions what Mutt was talking about, Mutt seems to be lying, but Indy can't tell. Indy spills water on a map or a clue revealing the real location of the fountain, and they realise they have to get to the location by a certain time, or the fountain will disappear for another 1,000 years. It's a race to the fountain. When the trio gets to the location, they see the bad guys. Mutt swears to Indy he didn't tell them, but Indy doesn't believe him. The bad guy laughs and hits Mutt, and then walks over to Gloria, his granddaughter, who has been leaving him like breadcrumb clues for her granddad to follow. Indy and Mutt get tied up and are forced to take the bad guys to the fountain. And we have typical Indy-style riddles to solve and a big magical reveal of the fountain. Indy apologizes to Mutt, and the bad guy tells everyone his plan is to sell the water from the fountain to the rich so they can live forever. Gloria feels betrayed as she was led to believe her granddad only wanted to get to the fountain first to get the family name cemented in history. She then betrays her granddad, frees Indy and Mutt, who take down the bad guys. The grandfather doesn't die by anyone's hand. He has like an accidental death, like he falls off a cliff, and Gloria and Indy can try and get to him in time, but don't, and he dies that way. The trio end by talking about what to do with the fountain. They decide to destroy all the clues, saying it's too much of a temptation for man. Mutt says, why doesn't Indy just take some for himself? That way he can be young and crazy and have fun adventures again, referencing the start. And he and Mutt can basically have start their relationship again and grow up with each other. But Indy says no and starts talking about not messing with Mother Nature and how getting old is natural, and you should only have one chance at life, and that's why you should have as many adventures as possible to leave your mark. And his mark will be his son. We end with Indy teaching. The door opens again, and another student apologizes for being late, but this time we see it's Mutt. He sits at the front of the class and starts making notes as Indy smiles and continues teaching.
Nicely pitched. I do have some questions about Indiana Jones and the Fountain of Youth.
Yep.
My first question actually is, who actually are the bad guys here?
Well,
we have reference to bad guys, but who are they?
I wanted to leave it quite open because I didn't want to go for like the stereotypical blame the Russians or blame the Germans. We could have them if we wanted to keep the whole indie feel, but I wanted to just open up. This is leading on to a new franchise with either Mutt or we can even have Chris Pratt taking it on. But yeah, if it was going to be Mutt, I want it to be new, non-stereotypical like enemies, so we can have them as Americans or something.
Okay, cool. I mean, it was more of a just like.
Who actually are they? I think they're just a bunch of people who overheard and can. They're. I don't want to name them like archaeologists again because they're so cliche. I think they're just people that overheard and will be like, "Oh shit, the Fountain of Youth, fucking money."
The bad guys corporated.
Yeah.
My second question is obviously in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Indy is reunited with Marion, and by the end of that film, they have got married. So where is Marion during Indiana Jones 5? Is she in it at all? Does she have any involvement?
She is mentioned when Indy and Mutt are reminiscing and talking, but I try to put her in, but I don't like putting characters in if they've actually got no reason, because otherwise she would have just been following around and literally would have had no point on the story.
No, that's absolutely fine. Third question then is, do we actually find out why Mutt was talking to the head bad guy in the bar?
No, I mean, like, I want he could, when everything comes out and open, he can just be kind of actually trying to calm things down and stuff. Or we can have an optional scene where the bad guy says, where's the fountain, and either Mutt can lie or say, I'm not saying. But no, I want it to be a big mystery, basically, until the reveal at the end.
All right, okay. That seems fair enough. And then the last one that I've got here is there any reason why Mutt and Indy haven't spoken since the events of Crystal Skull? Because I know you've gone for the sort of Henry, Indy, father-son vibe with the reconciliation in the first act, but I just wondered whether there was, like, would that be a place for you to explore why they've fallen out of touch with each other, or...?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that throughout the film, I think. In the first act, they might be a bit hesitant. But yeah, it could definitely be explored. I wanted there to be like the reason he hasn't spoken to, like, say, Indy in a while is because he's gone off on this new cool adventurer, like adrenaline junkies basically, who don't have like degrees. They're more like just chasing adventure. And obviously Indy doesn't really like, he says that's not the way to do it and stuff. So they,
it's like the intergenerational clash.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. That's all of my questions actually. I really enjoyed reading this script.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so next up in the sequel pitching hot seat is Drew.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Right, mine. I realised I actually sent mine over to you without a title, and it was just Indiana Jones and the...
Yeah, no, I thought that was maybe some really bold, like, avant-garde...
I promise I have done it on my doc that I've still been working on. It's Indiana Jones and the Power of the Ancients.
It sounds like a heavy metal album.
It does a bit. So, movie begins in 1969 at Woodstock. And you see like a guy in a sharp suit who looks entirely out of place, carrying some rare MacGuffin or artifact that doesn't matter to the film at all. And Mutt is tailing him. And he looks like he's on the case, and he's actually sort of in a nice suit as well. But as he's doing it, Indy and Marion both show up in like full hippie disguises because Indy didn't trust Mutt to get the job done. They end up having to have a big fight, and we watch the chase and the fight from the perspective of all the people at Woodstock who are stoned out of their minds on LSD and mushrooms and weed. And so it's like crazy and trippy and hopefully quite entertaining and funny. They eventually have the ceremony returning the object to the museum, and it's a big celebration, but it's cut short when Mutt is drafted for Vietnam. Cut to 1972, it's 3 years later, and Indy finds out that Mutt has gone missing, and Indy's approached by a government agent. He finds out that Mutt was drafted for a special mission to try and save Vietnamese artifacts, given his background and the work that he'd done with his father and Indy's connection to the government. And they believe that the Soviets may have actually gone in and taken him from Vietnam for some reason or another. So Indy and Marion go looking for Mutt. There we get a Vietnamese American woman who's an expert on Vietnamese history, and she comes along as their guide. Explains aspects of Vietnamese culture and the fact that, yes, they're technically an atheist state, but they have religious beliefs that are kind of in their culture more culturally. There's got to be a better way of saying that, but there we go. And they have various aspects of ancestors and gods of the land, and explaining all that kind of stuff. Going to the location of Mutt's last mission, they find an entrance to a temple that's been booby-trapped, but it's all been opened up, and they find an empty plinth, and it's a callback to Raiders, and it's kind of set up to look like the same plinth from the beginning of Raiders, but it's empty. They find some evidence that Mutt was here, kind of he's left some notes, or they find his notebook or something. They look around the temple, they realise it's something to do with wind, and then Indy starts putting it together. There's a legendary creation myth that appears in many ancient cultures around the world, obviously all pointing to wind, stone, water and fire. Cut to Mutt being PG-13 tortured to help the Soviets. He's standing up to them, he's giving them good bants, but eventually he gives up that stone he thinks may be at Stonehenge in England. Indy, looking at the clues that were left there at the time, works out the same thing, and they all arrive at Heathrow at the same time. You have a big chase through 1970s London, you have like the soundtrack from The Right Time, and you go to all the big landmarks, and it's all very, very Indiana Jones. And eventually they manage to get Mutt back, but they are still on the back foot, and the Soviets beat them to Stonehenge after setting a trap for them. sort of captures them there. The main villain gives a big speech about how Soviet rule's the only thing that's going to bring the world in line. Capitalism's gone mad. They're the only thing that will bring the world to order, and they'll use this power to make it happen. They escape the trap, obviously, but the Soviets have gone. They follow all the evidence, but they get taken into custody by the British government. They get questioned by the granddaughter of Marcus Brody. She breaks them out. She works for MI5 or MI6. She helps break them out, and they all work out that the final two stones, fire and water, are both in Hawaii, volcanoes in the middle of the largest ocean on the planet. They go there, but Indy's he gets injured in the trap, and he is struggling to keep going, and eventually Indy realizes he has to let Mutt and the younger generation take over, and they have to go and defeat the Soviets, and just Indy gives them advice and has to let them go. They have a big infiltration fight in the volcano. It's very high adventure. You have guards made of rock that are powered by the elemental stones that they have to fight, and then the Soviets get defeated because they don't respect the power that they're using, of course, because that's what happens to all Indy villains. Mutt and the others use the artifacts to create a place in the volcano where no one can get them. They use the stones to destroy the stones, if you like. The movie ends with Indy finally admitting that he's finished adventuring. He gives his hat to Mutt. You maybe have a joke about Marion asking him to keep the whip, and Mutt goes, "Oh, Mum, that's gross." And then Indy's ready to support his son in his ongoing adventures from a place of safety and comfort. The end.
Nice. Again, a very good, solid script. And
Thank you.
So solid that I have got 3 questions for you.
Okay.
So,
I'm nervous.
First question. See, I feel like I've been more intense as I've gone through my sets of questions. Like I was ramping up the difficulty level. So Drew gets moderate difficulty.
All right.
The first thing that I was really struck by was the way that you chose to characterize Indy in this one as sort of he's getting a bit older, maybe a bit long in the tooth. Like his time is very much coming to an end as the hero. So I said, it's an interesting, arguably realistic choice to end with Indy essentially going out with a bit of a splutter rather than in a blaze of glory. So how would you handle the passing of the torch to Mutt without in some way lessening or tainting Indy's legacy as a heroic adventurer?
I would hope that anything that John Williams is gracious enough to gift this production would be able to underscore Indy's moment of passing the torch as being heroic, of making that decision of it could be something of he's slowing them down or he realizes that he would be putting them in danger. It could be Marion saying he's being selfish, but that would maybe put a bit of a downer on it. It would just be about very carefully showing that it's not showing that it's his choice, not that he's been
forced. It's a selfless
forced.
act rather than not that this would be the text of the movie, but that he's allowing the focus to move on to someone else. Because it's also, I'm thinking of this in terms of franchising, and Lucasfilm cost Disney an awful lot of money, and I'm sure they want to be able to make. They obviously wouldn't be able to call them Indiana Jones, but I'm sure someone who's got a better brain than me could come up with the title for these films going forwards with Mutt in the lead role. Whether or not it's Shia LaBeouf, I'd assume probably not at this point. But yeah, so that's my answer for that. It might be quite difficult, but it's kind of I took quite a lot of inspiration from Endgame for this, to be frank, and it's kind of that moment where all of the new events